Hello, everyone, and welcome to the WRA interview. I'm Sandil Sambagam, and I'm the Portfolio Director for Europe for the World Refining Association. So for those of you who are not familiar with our work, we specialize in bringing the refining community together through conferences, board meetings, and of course now virtual conversations. We are involved in Latin America, the Middle East, Asia, and of course, my area of interest and our area of discussion today, Europe. So today I have with me Antonio Joyanes. Antonio is the head of CEPSA's refining arm and has over 25 years of experience in engineering, chemicals, trading and refining. He has a wealth of international experiences, including the management of successful projects across Europe, Africa and America. Antonio, how are you doing?
I'm very fine, thank you.
How is the lockdown treatment affecting you? The family are okay and everything?
Oh, terrible! we have been forced to adapt very fast.
Yeah.
So far, so good. From health point of view, we are fine, and the business is overcoming these difficulties successfully so far.
Well, thank you for joining me, and I suppose this does lead on to how COVID-19 is affecting the business. So, how has COVID-19 affected your refinery in the short and medium term?
Okay. COVID-19 crisis has affected significantly in the refinery and business operation, that's for sure. The daily life in the refinery has changed in many aspects, being the most important one, the health prevention practices. The short term was challenging because the implementation of the measure was urgent. However, we reacted fast, and it has been a real test about our ability to provide solutions for unexpected events. This is a lesson learned, for sure. With a main focus on preventing contagion, and we changed our working schedule. We organized a rotating shift of managers in order to ensure that we have a replacement fast for the manager team. We changed the normal rotation schedule of operators. We add protection equipment in the daily activities that we never have tasted before, like masks or face shields. We have rescheduled maintenance work. We have stopped some construction work. This is from an operational point of view, and from a business point of view, the demand plummeted strongly, and we struggled to modulate our refinery production at reasonable values in order to avoid shutting down cost or losing sales. At the same time, we have remote control in all operational in all operational sites at unthinkable levels. In the headquarters, we have a deserted landscape. I think that most of the refiners have lived these circumstances. And just before the outbreak, we were questioning about how remote work could be spread in our business. Now we have done a real test, and I think this is going to be something to remain in our daily operations. And also, it has been a very good test for our IT systems and our digitalisation efforts. And both aspects of the business have proven to be very worthy. Well, this is about the short term. In the midterm, a part of the preventive measures, the temperature control, the protection equipment, or the social distances rule, that is something that we are going to implement permanently. The offices and working areas are also going to be redesigned. And the remote work will be a regular practice in our job, as I mentioned before. It is something that we don't expect, for example, that when everything will be back to normal, we will have the same amount of people in our offices. The number of people in our offices will be radically reduced. The shutdown planning, for example, and the on-field activities organization are going to change dramatically. We do not expect necessarily, because of this, that our shutdown are going to last longer than before, because we have realized that the digital tools that we have developed are proven to be very helpful to reduce interferences and to optimize the maintenance and construction activities during the shutdown periods. In terms of business, again, we have acknowledged that we can react quite fast, and we hope to use this ability in the future. We didn't have the impression before this crisis that we were able to react so fast. The crisis also allowed us to realize that we are able to cooperate much more than that we expected, and to work as a team much better than that we expected. Collaboration between business for us has been essential. The fact of being an integrated company doesn't always guarantee that you are going to be very cooperative. In our case, I think there has been a competitive advantage. Our chemicals, our marketing team, and our trading team, together with refining, I think we have done a good job to optimize the production and to sustain the operation in the refineries. So far, we have not been forced to stop any of our units during the coronavirus crisis.
It's actually a very big feat, and it sort of moves on now to think, has all of these short-term reactions and medium-term reactions affected your long-term vision? So has it been a challenge to focus on the long-term when survivability is keeping you busy at the moment?
Yeah, from my point of view, survivability is a long-term subject. So what we have done from the very beginning of the outbreak was to develop several recovery scenarios, looking at minimum a one-year forecast. And we have to reckon that despite our scenarios covered the good or the optimistic scenario to the pessimistic scenario, the reality went beyond our pessimistic scenarios. It was even tougher than we expected. In any case, we always have been considering how we are going to recover from the very beginning and how it is going to affect our 5 years plan. And from the very beginning, this information gives us something very important. It gives us commitment with our team and with our company about the reality that we expected was going to be to pass through this crisis with economical effort, with impact in our data, in our P&L, but surviving. So at the second week of the crisis, we were able to tell our employees, don't worry, we are going to pass this crisis. If we don't have a long-term view from the very beginning, this sort of message, comfort message and motivational message should have been very difficult to be provided. So for us, looking at long-term from the very beginning is something key.
Currently, just going back to your maintenance schedules, how has this been affected, the working dynamics?
Well, during the crisis, we logically reshape our planning and move forward some of the non-essential maintenance activities in order to reduce contagion among workers. Many works have been pursued with a different methodology and with additional preventive measures. So some works cannot be delayed and had to be done anyhow. The use of a specific protection equipment like the face shields were very useful. To change the work schedule was also very useful. We changed the shifts just to avoid congestion in the main entrances, and we spread the access to the refinery several hours. We stopped providing food in the canteen, and we just supply packaged food in order to avoid people getting together. We have some people helping to ensure that people keep distances. We limited the people working together to the minimum, 2 people, 3 people, no more than that. And we also made a very useful utilization of something that we have been developing 2 years before the crisis, the use of the tablets in order to sign the permit to work or in order to arrange the daily work. So the tablets have been proven to be very useful because you don't have to share the paper, and the contractors and the operators are very comfortable about not getting in contact with people and keep on doing the work because the information is shared electronically. As I mentioned, what is true is that we have not changed dramatically our investment plan or our maintenance plan. We have just pushed it forward. We have frozen some jobs, and as soon as the escalation starts, we are recovering the pace. And those works are essential. For instance, to complete a shutdown for certification or for inspection before the end of the year, they remain in the schedule with a special preventive measures, but it remains.
This is talking about the bigger picture as well of going forward. To what extent do you believe existing behavioral habits will change after the crisis?
We do expect relevant changes. Definitely, we do expect acceleration of mobility in terms of use of the tablets I mentioned before, and more people working from home. At the headquarters particularly, but also in the refinery, something that was maybe unthinkable in the past, in our case. The access protocols have already changed, and they are going to be different from now on. The more strict control in terms of scanning or temperature scanning or medical checks. We are implementing that now, and it's going to be doing in the forthcoming months or in the future. And we have adapted our training when you access by first time to a refinery, for instance, covering these contagion issues that were not covered in the past. Our concept about offices and collaborative spaces will change as well. And the use of information technology, I think, will be massive. In refineries, changes in the spaces are expected to be relevant, but because most of the design are quite older than the headquarters. So many companies, I think, are going to be thinking about keep on investing in real estate for headquarters. I think that maybe many corporate offices are going to be abandoned. I think everybody is thinking about that. If you can have and you can keep being a business performing satisfactorily with 50% of people working from home, why do you need to expend so much money on a fancy headquarters? This is something to consider in many companies, I think. The individual's behavior, for sure, this is going to be the key for me, particularly in societies like the Mediterranean society with cultural features, strong cultural features regarding social content. We have to learn about this social content and try to have less crowded meetings, even despite our expectation that working from home has proven that the meetings are more efficient than when we work on site with presential meetings. So we are learning a lot about this experience.
Yeah, I agree. We've actually found that the WRA as well, the working from home can be more productive in certain areas. I won't go back to the management about that just yet. And so my next question actually goes around the current situation and the implications for what you will be doing as a refinery. So do you think the current climate will speed up the way that refineries will look at the energy transition, or is it causing you to slow down CO2 reduction projects?
That's a good question. I think it might affect indirectly through the economic effect following the crisis. I think the economy is going to be affected, and it is going to affect the pace we slow down CO2 production project. No? But I think that the project is a long-term project. It is quite likely that we will recover the pace quickly in order to leave the long-term targets unaffected. Maybe the impact will be noticed in some regions more than in others, but globally I don't think it will last a lot. No? The European commitment with these issues is high, and regulation is definitely playing a relevant role to retake the pace. Probably the northern Europe is going to be less affected than the southern Europe, but at the end, in a couple of years, I think we will retake the same goals that we had before the crisis.
And one thing we're seeing actually, just before the crisis and during the crisis, are oil firms such as Shell, Repsol and BP. They announced their target to be carbon neutral by 2050. Do you think this is realistic in your eyes?
Refining crisis is not helping to reach these goals. I mean refining crisis because you know that we are living also a refining crisis. The margin is very small, and the crisis has put that in evidence as well. We're pushing ahead the goal date. Maybe instead of 2050 is 2055. But 2050 is so far that it's very complex to advance a forecast. In short term, the progression, it is not particularly fast. We have to acknowledge that as well. No? So this goal requires relevant investment and long projects. I think that probably it's just that only big companies can afford. So I don't think it will be impossible to reach the carbon neutral goal by 2050. Just let's say that the market and regulators have powerful elements to take into consideration during this project to push or to slow down the advancement, much more than the crisis of COVID-19.
And so from CEPSA's point of view, do you still foresee your refinery achieving its own GHG reduction targets? So
far, our commitment with our GHG reduction targets are not changed. It could be challenging depending on the crisis seriousness and recovery, but if the cash to afford the investment and the government support does not exist, for sure it will be affected. So far, we remain with our scenarios. We remain optimistic and committed to sustainability as we are committed to our projects.
Has this period taught CEPSA any lessons in terms of energy efficiency? I know you mentioned before the changes in the way you work, but could you elaborate further on this?
Yeah, sure. For us, the need to optimize the refineries out of the normal operation condition has been one of the most interesting lessons learned. We were used to operate more or less in the same optimal range. And if you change dramatically your normal operation range, maybe you are not so good, or you have not so capable of optimizing the refinery. But we have learned to covering also these operational periods beyond the optimum operation radius is worthy, and have to take the right decisions, such volatile environment that we live now. So the decision to stop a unit or to slow down to 50% operation of one particular unit could be very, very useful, not only for recovering from coronavirus, but also in the future, if the market condition tell us that we have to operate at different radius. We have also explored very unusual scenarios, and while doing these simulations, standard, the RTOs, real-time optimizers, all these help us a lot to get the maximum where we are not operating in the optimum point. And we have reshaping our optimization system in order to cover wider operation ranges and options. This is the main lesson learned for us in terms of optimizing the units.
Going back a little bit, actually, is when you were talking about those European pressures. Do you think the Commission's Green Deal is going to hold up in light of COVID-19's impact, especially on government budgets now when they have to respond to the crisis?
As the economic impact is going to be very different as a function of the region, what I do not expect is an homogeneous progress. Some regions probably will have other priorities, or the budget will have to be reshaped. I believe in the long term we will return to the goals, but in the short term it's going to be impacted for sure. The role of governments will be key, and the economic support to industrial technologies will be key. In Europe, the effect will be quite different among the countries. And to harmonize these differences is not easy.
And one thing from the EU level is RED II. Is this affecting your strategy in increasing the biofuels production?
For us, sustainability is one of the pillars of our strategy. We have even reshaped our organization accordingly to ensure that the goals are going to be reshaped. Our plan about biofuels production has not changed because of COVID-19. The commitment with biofuels future project remains as it was before COVID-19. Biofuels production remains one of CEPSA's priorities.
From a technology perspective, which areas are CEPSA looking at the moment, and why do you think this is going to be the answer?
You talk about technology in terms of process. We still remain committed, as I mentioned, with fuels, biofuels. For sure, with chemical recycling is something we want to explore definitely, and we want to develop chemical recycling conjointly with the refinery. And as a group, not as a refinery, because we have a chemical integrated in our refinery, new developments in our chemical value chains are going to remain because the forecasts about chemical growth are very optimistic or very positive. No? So we want to keep on investing in these value chain projects. This technology gives us optionality, a part of profitability. And this is very important in order to reach sustainability goals in our company. Digitalisation is something that we started a couple of years ago, and during the COVID-19 crisis, it has proven to be very useful in terms of organization, planning, or even from preventive point of view. We think that we are going to speed up, and this will increase the value of our assets. When you have an asset where all the data of the assets can be processed and organized, arranged, and will help you to take a better decision, this is an added value. So we are going to keep on investing in digitalization, maybe faster than more committed than in the past.
Yeah, and it must help a lot with the efficiency levels of your refineries.
Digitalization definitely is going to help our efficiency as a refiners. We're putting a lot of focus on it. There's so much data in our refineries, as I mentioned before, that this information is key for taking decisions, that it need to be captured efficiently. It needs to be used from safety point of view or from reliability point of view. And it will reshape our organization. It will create a more dynamic team, much more focused on value creation than on keeping operation stable. We have more time to think about options, strategy, and opportunities, and I think that it will change the the approach of our operators. Everyone is a potential contributor. It is not just a matter of process or energy efficiency, it's a matter of business efficiency from my point of view.
If I had to give you the choice, which of the following do you see as having the potential to have the most significant effect on the future of downstream? You mentioned chemical recycling. There's also hydrogen and CCUS. So the floor is yours.
For me, considering the size of my company, I will bet for hydrogen and chemical recycling. Seems to be more reachable for us than the CCUS. It is just a matter of price and effort. It seems much more faster to be successful with the previous one, with the hydrogen and chemical recycling.
Yeah. And so the Commission have centered around hydrogen and that 2050 carbon neutral vision. So you mentioned hydrogen as a strong growth area. It would be great if you could expand on that, and CCUS being an alternative that might be a bit expensive.
Mm-hmm. Nor CCUS, neither hydrogen are a silver bullet. Price will rationalize the use of one technology or another, and its applicability will rely a lot on the regional context. Norway, for instance, faces not the same problems or possibilities than Italy, and this will determine the use of a specific solution or another. Producing hydrogen by electrolysis with power from hydraulic sources could be interesting if you have an electric system that relies on hydraulics. Storing CO2 in offshore reservoirs could be accessible if you have those reservoirs at hand. Both technology will live together, but allow me to say that some of them will be accessible only to big companies.
Okay. So the final area of question I wanted to move on from technology is about IMO. It's fair to say that IMO 2020 has been overshadowed by the coronavirus outbreak, and alongside the oil price crash, it would be interesting to understand. Can you tell us what steps have you taken to adapt to IMO?
From our point of view, what we have done is arrange our logistics and modify the crude oil diet.
Yeah.
Our market structure and strategy for bunker has also totally changed. We have integrated a more complex logistics and adapt to the market. We have not really invested in advance on more complex into a more complex refinery. We have the projects ongoing, but so far what we have done has been, as I mentioned, adapt our logistics and adapt our crude oil diet in order to produce what the market is demanding. I don't think that IMO 2020 has been overshadowed by coronavirus. In fact, one of the products for our refineries that has a better behavior has been the bunker. Okay. The prices was very healthy, and even the high sulfur fuel oil has been behaving quite well, much better than what we expected before IMO 2020. So bunker has remained relatively healthy during the coronavirus crisis.
And so is that why you chose to increase your very low sulfur fuel oil blends over something like a sulfur recovery unit and on desulfurization?
Well, we're still considering investment on the sulfurization project. Okay. We're still considering it as a feasible project. Despite the evolution of the prices, it's becoming less and less favorable, particularly if you look at the forecast in the pre-IMO 2020 forecast, or period. The reason why we still believe it is reasonable to invest, or it could be feasible to invest on the sulfurization, is that it provides you optionality, flexibility to adapt to a changing environment, changing market mechanism. The market is volatile, and providing a refinery with options, technological options, in order to produce with high sulfur or with low sulfur, this will give you an advantage in order to grant your survivability.
Are you actually surprised by the bigger appetite in low sulfur fuel oil over marine gas oil in the market?
A little bit. At the beginning, several years before IMO 2020, we did expect more MGO, more marine gas oil. But during 2019, we noticed how ship owners were reticent to change engines, to perform changes in their engines. The perception of the situation evolved. Price is being quite competitive, and the high sulfurs the high surplus of light and low sulfur crude oil in the market has contributed a lot to this situation. By the end of 2019, we acknowledged that producing very low sulfur fuel oil was going to be the reasonable choice. And 3 months or 4 months before the end of 2019, we start adjusting our logistics for producing very low sulfur fuel oil.
Okay, and this leads me on to then, which technologies are proven to be the most attractive when adapting to the regulations?
We're still, in terms of technology, we are always bet, I think that is a right choice, on hydrocracking, because it provided you that huge flexibility that I mentioned before we need as a business. No? It gives you the possibility or the optionality to adapt to different market scenarios. The investment is very high for this sort of technology, and now we perceive that producing asphalt is a very reasonable choice if you want to access to a market demanding, if you have access to a market demanding asphalt as an alternative to producing fuel oil. So we're playing with this optionality. But if I had to invest in a technology for having this flexibility in order to adapt to a context like IMO 2020, for me the choice has always been hydrocracker.
What about bottom of the barrel residue upgrading technologies? Have you seen an increase in the uptake of that?
I think most of the investment were decided before the IMO 2020 due date.
Yeah.
We do not see an increase in short term as the prices now are very unfavorable for the project. With current forecasting refining margin as well, I doubt an uptake on this sort of projects.
Well, that was a good interview. I'm very pleased with that. Thank you very much, Antonio, for sparing your time today. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to bring up? Is there anything you're looking forward to about Madrid in November?
Thanks to you for inviting me for this opportunity to talk about refining. Talking about the future ERTC, I had the opportunity to look at some abstracts.
Yeah.
And I'm quite convinced that biofuels efficiency and particularly digitalisation is becoming the main subject. Digitalisation, as I foresee in 2019, is becoming more and more usual in refining discussion so far. So I think digitalization is going to surprise us with a sort of idea, with a huge list of ideas and projects under development in Madrid next November.
Excellent, and I can confirm that too. But we'll let the successful abstracts know a bit later. But thank you very much, and have a very good day.
Likewise. Thank you to you.
Bye bye.